Which part of this machine produces the profit? How do you get to the owner's side of the kiosk? Imagine you're Marcus. It is 6:45 on a Tuesday morning in suburban Atlanta, and you are standing at the edge of your property watching the first car of the day roll through the laser sensor. The conveyor grabs the front tire, the pre-soak arch hits, foam spreads across a 3-year-old Camry whose driver, you happen to know, has been a monthly member for 11 months. The tunnel is the stage, but the membership is the show, and the show runs whether it rains or shines. According to Mr. Car Wash's 2025 Form 10K, its Unlimited Wash Club accounted for 76% of total wash sales during 2025. Before we look at money, we need to understand the physical machine that generates it, because capacity is where every ownership dream either becomes viable or stays a fantasy. A standard express exterior tunnel, the kind Marcus owns, runs somewhere between 90 and 120 cars per hour at peak throughput. Conveyor speed and exit staffing set the practical limit, while sensors must handle short vehicles cleanly. That figure comes from operator benchmarks cited in industry trade data and confirmed in the public filings of Mr. Car Wash, the largest car wash operator in the United States by location count, which reported on its 2025 annual SEC filing that it operates over 1,000 locations across the country. When a chain that size publishes operational guidance, the independent owner pays attention. Now, capacity on paper and capacity in practice are two very different conversations. Marcus's site can handle 110 cars per hour when everything is working. His actual peak hour average on a busy Saturday is closer to 85, because the exit lane backs up and drivers slow the line spacing when the lot is full. That gap between 110 and 85 is called utilization, and it is one of the most important numbers in any capital-intensive business. Every hour of underutilization is an hour where your fixed costs, the debt payment on the equipment, the lease, the minimum staffing, run without generating a corresponding return. Fixed costs do not take days off. That is the fundamental physics of owning a car wash. Throughput is also shaped by the mix of services. A site that sells only basic washes moves faster. According to a 2023 EPA WaterSense at Work guidance document covering commercial vehicle washing, a traditional car wash can use between 15 and 85 gallons per vehicle depending on equipment type and whether the site uses reclaimed water systems. The Mr. Car Wash 2025 Form 10K reports 548 locations in 21 states as of December 31, 2025. Now for the money machine itself. The glamorous answer is that a car wash prints cash. The useful answer is that it prints cash from several different spigots simultaneously, and understanding which spigots you can control is what separates a profitable operator from one who is perpetually surprised by the quarterly statement. Retail washes and membership subscriptions drive revenue in a modern express car wash. Ancillary sales add another source. Let's take each one. Retail washes are single-transaction customers who pull in without a membership and pay at the kiosk. They pay well but arrive unpredictably. They spike after storms. Spring pollen and major holidays can also bring a rush. They disappear during ice events and sustained heat waves. On Marcus's site, retail customers account for roughly 35% of total car count, but a higher percentage of per-wash revenue, because members who wash frequently at $42 a month are effectively paying a discounted per-wash rate when they visit more than twice. The retail customer at $22 for the premium wash is your highest per-transaction margin customer. The challenge is you cannot plan payroll around them. Membership subscriptions are the financial base of the modern car wash business model, and this is where the contrarian reality lives. When Marcus opened his site, roughly 60% of his revenue came from retail. 3 years in, that ratio had flipped. About 62% of his monthly revenue now comes from members who pay on a recurring basis regardless of how many times they visit. His membership base is approximately 800 active members. At $42 per member per month, that generates $33,600 in predictable monthly revenue before a single retail customer arrives. That number is not a profit figure, it is a revenue floor. But a revenue floor is especially important when your monthly fixed cost structure runs somewhere between $22,000 and $28,000 in operating expenses. The floor covers the base. Retail and ancillary sales are where margin lives. Let's define a few terms before we go further, because the difference between revenue, operating income, and owner cash flow is the difference between understanding this business and getting the wrong picture from a headline number. Revenue is every dollar that comes through the kiosk before any cost is subtracted. Operating income is what remains after you subtract all operating expenses, chemicals, labor, water, utilities, maintenance and management, but before you pay debt service on the equipment loan or building lease. Owner cash flow, sometimes called seller's discretionary earnings in a small business transaction, is what is left after debt service and any owner's salary replacement. These are three very different numbers, and anyone trying to sell you a car wash site will lead with the first one. Now let's build an illustrative model for Marcus's site. These are modeled assumptions based on published operator benchmarks and public company data, not a guarantee of any specific site's performance. Assume annual retail wash revenue of approximately $500,000 across a blended average ticket of $15. Add membership revenue of $33,600 per month, or roughly $403,000 annually. Against that, operating costs on an express exterior site include chemical costs, which according to industry operator benchmarks run roughly 4 to 8% of revenue, so call it $50,000 to $75,000 annually, according to the Mr. Car Wash 2025 Form 10K. Labor and chemicals were 29% of company-wide revenue during 2025. The same 2025 report lists other store operating expense at 42% of company-wide revenue. Here's the bill nobody dreams about, and it arrives before you even wash your first car. Marcus's site cost approximately $1.4 million to build from the ground up. Land lease buyout, tunnel equipment, reclaim system, canopy structure, kiosk hardware, and the first 3 months of working capital. He financed the equipment and build-out through an SBA 504 loan, which the Small Business Administration describes as a long-term fixed-rate financing tool for major fixed assets. The 504 structure typically requires a 10% owner equity injection, with a certified development company funding 40% and a conventional lender covering 50%. At the time Marcus closed his loan, the fixed-rate portion on a 20-year term was carrying an effective rate in the 5 to 6% range on the CDC portion. His total annual debt service, principal plus interest across both loan components, runs approximately $118,000 per year, or roughly $9,800 per month. Now run the math on his worst stretch. 14 days of freezing rain, 120 cars per day, retail revenue only because members who are not showing up are still paying their monthly fee. On those 120 car days, retail revenue alone covered perhaps $2,800 a day. Operating costs, the staff he kept on minimum schedule, utilities, chemicals for the cars that did run, were still running around $700 to $900 a day. The debt payment does not pause for weather. Neither does the equipment lease on the reclaim system. Neither does the liability insurance premium. The fair counter case, and there is always one worth hearing. Those 14 days of freezing rain were immediately followed by the pollen storm. Marcus's volume the week after the ice cleared was the highest single week in his site's history. The membership base that kept paying during the slow period converted to high-frequency users the moment the sun came back. Members who visited 4 times in 1 week cost Marcus approximately the same in chemicals and water as members who visit once, but they drove dramatically higher word-of-mouth referrals and new member sign-ups in the weeks that followed. The membership model absorbs weather shock in both directions. During freezing rain, members subsidize your fixed costs. After the storm, they become your best marketing channel. There is a second dark chapter that has nothing to do with weather: equipment failure. Tunnel equipment operates under enormous mechanical stress. According to the EPA's 2023 WaterSense guidance, reclamation systems can treat water from earlier wash cycles for reuse in later stages. Now for the contrarian turn, and here's where the ownership math gets genuinely exciting rather than merely survivable. The consensus story about car wash ownership goes like this: save up $2 million, buy a site, manage a car wash, collect money. That story is both accurate and completely useless as a starting framework for someone who is not already sitting on $2 million in liquid capital. Here's what the consensus story misses: every skill, relationship, and piece of market intelligence that makes a car wash owner successful is available to you right now at a fraction of the capital cost. And building those assets before you buy is not a consolation prize. It is a competitive advantage. Your first rung is smaller than the dream, and that is good news. Rung 1 is mobile detailing. A professional mobile detailing operation requires a van or truck, a pressure washer and generator, a combined water and chemical system, plus the liability insurance to show up on someone's property. Total startup capital for a credible setup runs between $8,000 and $25,000 depending on equipment quality. The SBA's microloan program, administered through nonprofit intermediary lenders, offers loans up to $50,000 for exactly this class of startup. You're not running a car wash, you're learning what customers value, how to price for labor and chemicals, how route density determines whether a day is profitable, and how to build a recurring client base. The same recurring relationship logic that powers a membership program. A mobile detailer who services 40 regular customers per month at an average ticket of $150 generates $6,000 in gross monthly revenue. After chemicals, fuel, insurance, and any loan payment on the equipment, net is modest but positive, and more importantly, you are building a client list, a reputation, and an understanding of local vehicle ownership patterns that a future site selection analysis will depend on. Rung 2 is the fixed site in-bay automatic. An in-bay automatic, the rollover brush machine in a single bay, requires substantially less capital than a full tunnel. Often between $150,000 and $400,000 depending on whether you're converting an existing bay or building new entry to this. Rung often happens through a lease of an existing bay in a gas station or convenience store forecourt, where the landlord provides the structure and you provide the equipment and operation. Operating an in-bay teaches you water management, chemical titration, kiosk software, maintenance scheduling, and the relationship between your pricing and your volume, all at a scale where a bad month does not end the business. Rung 3 is the express exterior tunnel. This is Marcus's world. A new build express exterior tunnel requires between $1 million and $2 million in total project cost depending on the site and selected equipment. This is where SBA financing becomes the central tool. The SBA 7A loan program, which the agency describes as its primary program for helping small businesses obtain financing when they might not otherwise qualify on conventional terms, can support up to $5 million for qualifying businesses. In July 2026, the SBA announced that small businesses are now eligible for up to $10 million in SBA financing. That larger ceiling can support multi-site operators for a single-site tunnel build. The 7A or 504 program provides the structure to enter with an equity injection of 10 to 30% rather than full cash ownership. Marcus's equity injection was $140,000, meaningful capital, but not $2 million. What Marcus brought to that loan conversation was not just the down payment. According to the SBA's 2026 program guidance, 7A, loans can finance an ownership change. The program can also cover working capital, equipment, or real estate. Available does not mean approved. Marcus is back at the edge of his property. On this Friday evening in late April, the queue stretches past the entrance sign. 800 members have paid this month. About 400 of them will never show up. About 200 will show up twice. About 180 will show up enough times that they have essentially named this car wash as part of their weekly routine. The same routine that generates referrals and new member signups. Those conversations can eventually close a second site. The machine is not the tunnel. The machine is the habit, multiplied by 800 people who decided your value was worth $42 a month without needing to think about it again. Big dreams need real numbers, and the real number at the center of this business is not the annual revenue figure a broker will put in a listing. It is the active membership count. Because that count is what survives the winter freeze, what absorbs the broken conveyor, and what a future acquirer will value at a multiple when you decide it is time to move to the next machine. You get to the owner's side of that kiosk the same way the machine itself works. One recurring relationship at a time, built on density, trust, and numbers you understand. Your dream deserves real numbers. Subscribe and choose the next machine we open together.